Welcome in, everyone, to the Go 24/7 Instant Reaction Podcast. And hey, we're doing this one live after the game. And for a lot of people who are saying, Bryce, where in the world are you right now? Well, I'm hanging out in the cold, cold weather here over in Georgia. We came back for Thanksgiving, and shout out to Glenn and Sonny for handling things, letting us, spend some time with the family, and letting us also be able to let the family spend some time with the brand new baby, 5 months old, be 6 months next week. But that's all great. And you know what's even better? LSU with a really, really big win. So we're excited to have you on. We're excited for you to be talking with us here on the Go 24/7 Instant Reaction Podcast as LSU knocks off Oklahoma. Now, I want to get this out of the way to start things. This was a convincing win in every single idea of it. It was a convincing win in not just the final score, but in my mind, this was a win where, look, you're starting to see some growth patterns from this team. This is a disappointing season. 8-4 was what no one wanted. 8-4 was not the goal. It's well short of where this team wanted to be as we get ready to flip the calendar to December. But I will tell you one thing, and that's that this team may be starting to find some things. And my first takeaway that I'll roll in with this one is obviously you get to see Garrett Nussmeier, what he's made of. And in between the ears is kind of the biggest thing that I took away from this game. You kind of go over to the stats, and look, anyone can look at a box score. You find where he was 22 of 31, 277, 3 touchdowns through the air, including 2 touchdowns to Mr. Chris Hilton, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's a good thing to see for LSU fans there as well. But I think one of the biggest things that we've kind of seen in this game, and I think one of the things that I took away was the mental fortitude of Garrett Nussmeier, right? Like, this is a guy in Nussmeier who, for lack of better words, has struggled. This whole team has struggled during kind of the middle portion of the season. But I think when you take a look at what he was able to do last week against Vanderbilt, you compound that with what they're able to do out there on the field tonight, and his ability to come back from injury, will this team and really kind of fire up and maybe emerge in a leadership role where I think people have talked a lot about it, but we might have started to see that tonight. So very impressed with the play of Garrett Nussmeier and what he was able to do in terms of playing the football, playing the defense. A lot of, what football is being able to play against those other 11 guys across from you. I thought Garrett Nussmeier made some really good decisions, and he let his athletes go to work, right? Like, there were 8 different receivers with a catch in this game. Obviously, Josh Williams led the way with 5. Caden Durham with 4, and then you had 3 guys with 3 receptions in Kyron Lacey, Mason Taylor, and CJ Daniels. Chris Hilton had 2 there for 85 and 2 touchdowns. Kamorian Pimpton, 2 big catches for big 8-8, which is something we're going to touch on later, in the week. But I think this is also later next week when you talk about the portal. The tight end position was going to be mentioned for me, and that Kamorian Pimpton could have been a guy that maybe he was thinking about jumping in, but you showed how you could get him involved. Is it too little too late? I don't necessarily think so. But 2 targets for Pimpton, and then obviously the 2 catches there as well. You continue to kind of roll with it. Aaron Anderson had the 1 catch for 6 yards, but also Aaron Anderson contributed with the big kickoff return for a touchdown. And I think a lot of this is you have to be honest about what this team is. And this is a team that is probably middle of the pack in the SEC. They showcased, and glimpsed, more glimpses, I should say, of why they could be one of the top teams in the SEC. But it all comes down to consistency. It all comes down to not shooting yourself in the foot. It all comes down to being able to do things out there on the football field where you can't make a mistake. You can't allow the other team to have opportunities. Now, look, Garrett Nussmeier, the one thing we obviously talk about is the ability, his ability to control the football and ability to take care of the football, right? Like, that's something I think we're all sitting here wondering. That's got to be an emphasis if he's going to be your starting quarterback when you roll into Death Valley up there, they call it, in Clemson next year. If that's going to be the case, that's something that has to vastly improve. I don't think there's a lot of pushback on that idea. But Nussmeier in totality, I just like the mental battle. We've seen him put up numbers. This was a really efficient game from him in terms of that. LSU's offense averaged a little over 6 yards per play. They were getting good depth, 12.4 yards per completion. You would have liked to see more in the running game, but I think it was complimentary enough. Caden Durham with an explosive 50-yard gain. He tallied 11 carries and had 80 yards on those 11 carries. as a team. If you take away the sacks, you averaged over 4 yards a carry. That's about where you want to be. So it was efficient, I think, in that aspect of things. And that's something that you kind of have a growth piece on. But the important part for this offense is I think you've maybe saw some things that you can build off of. And you saw some pieces too. I mentioned Kamori Pimpton in the passing game. I think that's huge in terms of longevity and looking into the future. And then obviously Caden Durham there, as you continue to see, could he be the lead guy for you in 2025? And I think he's shown that in glimpses. And tonight was a night where that explosiveness, and I thought it was interesting, Tom Hart and the broadcast crew talked about this, is that the drives were getting a little too long when they were talking to Brian Kelly in terms of, yeah, it's cool to have 11, 12 play drives, but if you're not punching it in consistently or you're not able to capitalize in any form or fashion, it's kind of empty. You need some of those explosive plays, and LSU needed that, and I felt like they got that. Like I mentioned, the big plays out of Hilton, the big plays out of Kamori Pimpton, the big plays out of Caden Durham. So that to me was a really big piece to the puzzle. I think when you take in totality this offense, 395, 285 through the air, 110 on the ground, 18 first downs. They were 6 of 15 there on third down conversions. Can it always be better? Yeah, it definitely can always be better. But in hindsight, where you're rolling with this, it is what it is. This team is who they are. So that to me is a kind of a key component to this whole thing as well. Time of possession, they barely won that one. They did get the touchdown off the turnover, which I thought was really, really good there as well. But let's talk a little bit about this defense, right? Because I think that's something that if you just look, guys, Whit Weeks, 15 tackles, 9 by himself, 2 tackles for loss. You tallied, by the way, and this is that aggressive Blake Baker style of defense you wanted to see. Because just a week ago, Jackson Arnold in the game against Alabama confused the Tide defense, one that shut down LSU's offense. He made them pay on the ground, over 150 rushing yards in that game. And I think when you look at this one and you kind of sit there and you're honest with yourself, there was a concern. There was a concern for me. Could you attack them but stay in control? And I felt for the most part they did that. Whit Weeks, like I mentioned, 15 total tackles. He had 2 for a loss. Devon Keys emerging as a freshman player, no longer a freshman, really, number 42 there for the white and gold. Or for the white and yellow, purple and gold, whatever you want to call them. I know jerseys are kind of a touchy subject right now. He had double-digit tackles, a career high and a season high for him, obviously. He had a tackle for loss. Greg Penn in his senior night game, 1.5 tackles for loss. And how about big Don McKinley there in the middle? That's a guy that we wanted to see get going for this LSU team. 2 tackles for loss. And one thing about Don McKinley that I wanted to see was, where's the fire? Where's the fire in his belly? And he not only got the tackle for loss, he got up and he got excited about it. And I think, and he let Oklahoma know that he, hey, he might just be 18 years old, but he's ready to play some ball. So Don McKinley with 4 tackles, he had 2 for a loss. Ahmad Bro with a half tackle for loss. He's just been, I think, quietly one of the reasons that LSU's at 8 wins. And I mean that on the good side of things, right? I know that people want to see more improvement, but it is what it is. I thought Zy Alexander played a good game. I thought that it was an opportunity for, Alexander to go on a high note in an LSU jersey, and I think he did that. I was really impressed with that. And then Braden Swinson, right? I mean, Swinson's a guy that when you look at the sack numbers, and I did mention McKinley had 2 sacks, by the way. Swinson's a guy that really kind of got out to this really hot start, maybe leveled off a little bit. But I think this is a game, and I go back to, the 1 tackle that he had in the backfield, laid the wood. I mean, the dude, he just laid the guy out. So you saw a little bit of that LSU nastiness in the defense tonight. And yeah, it's not an Oklahoma offense that's going to necessarily light things up, but they did have confidence coming into this game, right? Like they did feel like they might have found something. And the thing that had plagued you so much, you didn't let rear its ugly head. And I think that has to be a win. There's no moral victories. I get that. This is a disappointing season. Arnold had 17 carries. That's a lot. 75 yards. They ran for 167 total, 4.5. The longest run they had was 34 yards. That feels like an explosive play. It probably is when you get down to it, but it just didn't feel like it's been feeling, I would say, for the past month, right? They didn't necessarily, in my opinion, they didn't really get a chance to gash you on the ground. So yeah, they had 7 runs for over 10 plus yards in this one, but there just wasn't the complete meltdowns. there's still things that have to be fixed. Safety play needs to be better. You're going to have to get better personnel to help out with that. But they didn't gash you necessarily, in my opinion, on the ground to the point where it's like, okay, here we go. And you kind of cinched down on some of those things in the second half, right? You kind of look at some of the big runs they had. A 28-yarder in the second quarter, a 12-yarder in the second quarter, a 10-yarder in the second quarter, and then 4 that were under 15 yards in the third quarter. And then you get to the big one. It was Sam Franklin who ran for 34 yards and was pushed out of bounds by Jordan Gilbert there in the fourth quarter. But that was late into the game. The game felt in hand at that point. Through the air, look, they hit a 50-yard pass there in the second quarter, about 8:39 remaining. It was 1st and 10 at their own 25. They get it all the way down to your side of the field, down to the LSU 25. You don't love that. You don't want that, but miscommunication, you got to get back to the drawing board. You got to fix some things with both personnel and play calling. And then obviously they had the 17-yard pass there in the second quarter as well. So you close out this regular season, right, with a big win in terms of building confidence. And I kind of end this with what now? Like, what do I want to see now? What do the fans want to see now? And if you want to, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the Go 24/7 message boards. Because I think the biggest thing that I want to see kind of moving into the bowl season and moving into the offseason now is how you attack the portal, obviously, but what young guys, are not just going to be thought of as just, okay, they're depth, but they're real contributors to the 2025 roster. Devon Keys has emerged as that. I would say Amon Bro has emerged as one of those guys. And this game for me was very, very positive signs that we saw at Don McKinley. So there's things that you can build off of. It's not what you wanted. Obviously, no one wanted to be playing a 7-4 and a 5-6 or a 6-5 Oklahoma and a 7-4 LSU on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. You would have loved to have a marquee spot. You would have loved to have to, winning this game means that you get that 12 playoff. It isn't. They fall short of their goal, but there's a lot to take away from just the young players. That's what I'm choosing to focus on, and the moxie of Garrett Nussmeier. We talk a lot about mental toughness. I think that has been put to the test. And both the mental and physical toughness, both of those aspects really put a test in this one. So shout out Garrett Nussmeier and the way he played in this one. I wanted to get to one more thing here. Go look at starters, right? And I think you're really starting to see maybe there's a shift in philosophy with the 4-3 defense recently. And Brian Kelly's kind of been coy about it. He hasn't really gone into a lot of detail, right? But I think one of the big things with this is you found something in your ability to limit the big plays. Personnel has to get better. A lot of things need to improve in terms of how you can do certain things. But overall, the 4-3 defense, it's working. Hopefully you can get a really good result in the bowl game out of it. And it's something that Blake Baker can go back to the drawing board, get out of the game week prep and say, okay, how can we best utilize the talent? If it is the 4-3, then let's really get the dudes we need to get in here to be able to perform that to the best of our abilities. That's just some food for thought for you as we get closer. What's up next? Obviously, National Signing Day. Next Wednesday, we're going to have all the great coverage over at Go 24/7, also 24/7 Sports right here. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you hang out with us on the message board. Get that 75% Black Friday deal. And come hang out with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of different storylines emerge as we get closer and closer to signing day. So make sure you come part of Go 24/7 family. Make sure you hang out with myself, Sonny Ship, and Glenn West. All season long, hoops is in full swing. Men and women looking really impressive so far. And obviously, you get to the baseball season, right? And we're all pumped about baseball season. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be awesome. I'll wait to talk more with you about it. But we'll have some more content here on the YouTube page. We'll have some more content over on Go 24/7 where you want to be a member. My name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. The final score, LSU 37, Oklahoma 17. The Tigers finished 8-4 and 5-3 in conference play. They'll be awaiting their bowl opponent that will be announced the Sunday after conference championship weekend. Will it be cold or warm? We'll see where Tiger fans will be spending around the new year and post-Christmas holidays here very soon. We'll catch you next time here on the Go